This episode of Grilled is sponsored by Rationale, your leading provider in multifunctional hot food preparation equipment. Register now for a free Rationale live demo at www.rationale-online.com. Thanks for downloading the Grilled podcast by the Staff Canteen. I'm Cara, editor of the Staff Canteen, and in this episode I talk to forager Alysia Vasey and 2 Michelin-starred chef Mark Birchall from Restaurant Moor Hall. Alysia has just released her first book called The Yorkshire Forager. It is full of everything she has in her head to do with foraging, so that's all 90,000 words. And this collection of adventures offers tips, tricks and insights into how best to garden the countryside. Alysia is also good friends with Mark, who she has been supplying for years, and he regularly uses her products on his dishes at the restaurant. Mark explains why he likes to use those ingredients and how foraging is not as easy as it looks.
Mark Birchall, Alysia Vasey, I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly, and welcome to Grilled. Thank you for joining me, and it's really refreshing to talk to you both about a topic that isn't solely coronavirus focused, because I know we're all sick to death of that word.
Yeah, it's a ban word. It's a ban word here. So.
Yeah, ban word, yeah, we're moving on from that.
So, I'm sure that you're both that aside, very happy to see hospitality industry to start kind of coming back to life a little bit. So I'm sure, we'll talk about everything else, but just on that to start with, is it nice to see people are able to start kind of opening in some degree?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, we've been, it's been over 3 months, hasn't it? It's been absolutely painful. I think most of us knew we would be able to open on the 4th, but until you heard it actually come out of the mouths, it's been hell, hasn't it, really? So, yeah. But people can open this weekend. I mean, we're opening the barn on the 7th and the restaurant on the 16th. I'm praying for good weather because I've got 700 covers booked next week, and 40% of them are sat outside. So, yeah. And
you're definitely in a part of the country that always has good weather, right, Mark?
Yeah, it's absolutely pissing it down now. So it's. Yeah, I'm praying. We've got brollies and heaters, so as long as it's not driving rain, we'll be all right.
I'm sure that people would just be glad to be out and not stuck in. So I really don't think they'll mind a bit of drizzle. So I think they'll.
I'm going out Saturday night. I booked myself a restaurant. I'm out. If we have to go into lockdown again, at least I've been out once this year. Yeah. I mean, our foraging season's half of it's over. We're in middle of July. A lot of restaurants are not open until the end of July, even August, and then there's a few in September as well. So, I put out my first list yesterday. See what we do with that. Do you know what? It's just dipping your toe into the unknown. You have absolutely no idea what's going to happen, have you?
Yeah, and it must be strange for you, obviously, working with hospitality and just having take that step back, and people don't realise the impact that on other people. With it, you think about restaurants are closed, but then there's all the people that rely on restaurants, isn't it? So it's
that's it. And the other thing is as well is we can gauge what kind of situations some restaurants are in, because at one point they are going to open again. So the ones that are financially viable, that they're out there doing the bit. A lot of top restaurants, are very seasonal and wild produce orientated. There's always an element in it. Whether it's it might not be the most unusual things, but people tend to use elderflower, which is commonly available, and you just get that sense that with the chefs being on furlough, and a lot of people have just not been out there thinking ahead for themselves to use like the elderflower vinegars in winter, or gather the wild garlic and make wild garlic oil so they can have it for the end of the year. A lot, you get that sense where a lot of chefs are absolutely cracking. I was talking to Tom Aikens yesterday, and he's been out there morning, noon and night foraging. I mean, he got a load of dog rose, which is absolutely, honestly, it's really hard to pick, the petals of a dog rose because they're far and few between. But he was on it, and he's got jars of the stuff. He's been doing foraging left, right, and centre. And then the other chefs that are really heavily forage based, and they haven't. But you've been getting stuff in, haven't you, Mark? You've been on it.
Yeah, well, I mean, before we go on to that, let's just talk quickly about how you two met. So, Mark, you seem to not remember. This year, you definitely remember. So, how do you two know each other?
Oh, do you know what? It was quite a few years ago, actually. And you might remember, it wasn't an actual meeting. I stood him up. right?
Well,
I stood him up.
Wow.
You remember? Right, so Brian Mellor was holding some award ceremony and he asked me to get Adam, see if we could do this award thing at Adam Reed's place. Anyway, I think at the I'd never spoken to Mark, and I think it was short notice. I think he was a bit short-staffed and up against it. And well, basically, I had this raving lunatic on phone, right? Yeah, giving me absolute hell, and I thought to myself, God, I don't like him. I did. It was like, why am I having to do this at short notice? Honestly, I was getting so much grief, and I thought, I've never spoken to you before. Anyway, so it comes to the day of the award ceremony, and I thought, I ain't going. I'm not sharing a stage with that man. I thought, there's no way I'm going up there, right? So about an hour before it was due, he was on stage, right, yeah, doing a demonstration. I was supposed to be there doing the foraging bit. I got no intention of turning up. I thought it's a nut job.
You painted a very bad picture of me here.
aren't we? So the thing was, I rang up the organiser and said, I'm stuck in traffic on M60, there's been an accident. So I just left him to it. And then I felt really guilty, and then I told him. The thing with Mark is that when he opened Moor Hall, he got in touch with me, and I was absolutely over the moon. I really was. And we've had this fantastic relationship ever since. Honestly, he's one of the chefs that makes me, honestly, he's so dry, it makes me laugh all the time.
What are you talking about? Yeah, I forgot about that, actually. Yeah, we were doing a demo, weren't we? I think it was like the young chef thing at Manchester, and to be honest, I really didn't want to do the demo. I don't like doing demonstrations.
I did get that impression, yeah.
I'm no Jamie Oliver by no means. It's like, where the hell is she? Why is she not showing up, this woman?
Well, at least you got over it, because obviously, you said, you're fine now. So
I don't hold grudges.
Good to know.
Oh God, yeah. I was like this sort of thought. It was like getting a Fergie hairdryer, and I was like, why am I getting so much grief? I thought, no, I'm not going. I thought, that's it. I'm not turning up. I thought he can do it on his own.
Were you having a bad day, Mark?
To be honest, I don't think it's true anyway, but I'll play along.
Right. So, Alysia, you were a forager before it was cool, I suppose, before everybody was doing it. And so it was your grandfather who taught you most of it, is that right? So tell us a bit about foraging and how you kind of got into it.
Well, nobody ever called it foraging. It was just scratching around in dirt or going out and getting stuff. It was. It was everything from.
Still goes on in Yorkshire, that, doesn't it? Saturday night. This Saturday night.
Yeah, this Saturday night it will.
Just foraging. Oh gosh, the word foraging. It's just so, I don't know. I just find it. I mean, there's no other word for it really. It sounds quite pretentious. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we always did it. I look back in my photograph albums, and I've got there's me. I'm 8 years old, picking mushrooms and things. I'm out with my brother. We just did it. It was just something that we did. My granddad used to work night shifts at a carpet mill, and he came over from Poland, and he had to live. At one point he had to escape the Nazis, so he had to live in the forest for about a year, and they had to just live off the land. But you see, the Eastern Europeans have got a really massive tradition of foraging. It's so much more common in those days to go out because you had to preserve for winter. You didn't have the fridges, you didn't have the freezers. Everything had to be dried, cured, preserved. We've all got grannies who can do jams, and they're absolutely fantastic at chutneys and preserves. You just don't get that anymore. A lot of these skills are, well, actually, it's a lot of the skills like home cooks. It's diminishing, but yet in the restaurants, it's taken it to a new elevation. There's a lot more elegant. There's a lot more creativity and technical aspects involved. But from our perspective as a kid, you went home, your auntie was doing raspberry jam, you'd be picking blackberries and then you'd be soaking them to get all worms out and all sorts of things. And it was just that, you don't realise that you're being taught something. You just realise as you're growing up, you've got certain skill set that other people don't have, but you don't actually realise it at the time. You don't know you've got it. You just assume everybody does what you do. You think all families are the same when you're 10, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And Mark, have you always been a fan of squatting around in the dirt, as Alysia said, or is that something that you've grown to be interested in?
Only on a Saturday night. But yeah, no, it's. I mean, like my first job at the Walnut Tree with Franco down in Abergavenny. So, you love wild garlic, so we had to go and pick wild garlic. And when seps, when we thought seps were available, we used to go and forage for seps. So, yeah. I suppose, it wasn't. We didn't call it foraging then. We just went picking wild garlic and looking for seps and other mushrooms. So I suppose, that's when I was first introduced to it around 20 years ago.
Wow.
Then when I moved to Northcote, I carried on picking a little bit of wild garlic and little bits like that. Those sort of things didn't really feature in the restaurant there. So it was quite a while ago, and it blew me away, to be honest with you, just picking wild garlic in the afternoon. It's like, what's this about? Is this actually edible? And quickly, 5 hours later, we've got like 20 bin bags full of it. It's like, okay. But no, it's good fun as well. I think it gets you out of the kitchen, and you need that. We don't do too much of it ourselves now. We get a few coastal bits, and we grow some bits here as well. But I heavily rely on Alysia for our forage bit.
Yeah, and Alysia, it hasn't always been like your main career, has it? You didn't always do this as a main source of income.
No, you don't. I mean, when you go to see your careers advisor, when you're about 16, 17, you don't think you're going to be picking weeds for a living, do you? Right.
Not those weeds.
No, it's not the career path of choice, is it? I went into the Navy, and I was a helicopter engineer working on Mark 4, Mark 5 Sea Kings, and Mark 6 actually, before Merlins came in. And I was an engines and airframe specialist for about 5 years. So I was frontline. I did Bosnia, got my medal and everything. And I spent most of my life on aircraft carriers, basically up and down Mediterranean. So it was different. But when I actually, after that, I went to university, and I did a law and politics degree. And one of the things that was really apparent is none of the students could cook. None of them. Absolutely. In fact, one of them asked me how to open a tin of beans. I mean, really, honestly, it was diabolical. Right? And don't get me started on those old-fashioned tin openers. Right? Anyway, I ended up doing the cooking. And the one thing about my university at East Anglia was it was set in parkland. So I was able to sort of like, on my way to lessons and seminars, I could sort of like tootle around. And I thought, wow, this is great. There was always like mushrooms and things to be found and bits of sweet Sicily. And everybody was amazed by the wild garlic. Honestly, they were amazed. So my little soiree, my flat, it was quite popular. I ended up feeding the 5,000 on virtually nothing, which was good because it's food for free, essentially. And, you encourage people. But even then, I didn't think you could do it honestly, I didn't think you could do it as a living. It was, I got obsessed with truffles in about 2006, and I was trying to sort of like plant rogue truffle trees on other people's land, in woods around where I live, because I thought, well, I figured that they wouldn't notice. And well, a tree's a tree, isn't it? It's a lot of research to plant a truffle tree, because you got to, it's absolutely right. It's the ambience, it's the pH values of the soil, it's the kind of like, honestly, it's
I can believe it. I can 100%.
You can't just go and stick one in your back garden and hope for the best. It's really technical. And the reason why I was doing that, I'd found some. I mean, me and Mum, when I go back to scratching in the dirt, my mum, she's a brilliant forager. So we've got these garden dibbers, and I said, there's no mushrooms in that wood. I says, I reckon there's truffles in the wood. This is about 2006. I said, there's truffles in them woods. I says, there's no mushrooms. There's no mushrooms come up. Because if you get a mushroom wood, which is great, you tend not to get a truffle wood because the truffles are in competition with the mushrooms, and truffles, like, you know, they rule everything. So I said there's got to be truffles in them woods. So we went down, me and my mum, and we were scratching in the dirt just randomly all day long. And we did find truffles. We found something called Guinea truffles and the yellow. And then after we found the Guinea truffles, I was really excited, but they weren't commercial truffles. But the interesting thing was this year, there's a chef, Alistair, up at the Moorcock, and I said to him, do you know what, Al? I says, go down, I says, and find these truffles. I told him where to find them. So we went down, and he sends me a picture. He says, I couldn't find any of those truffles that you were on about. I says, all right, yeah. He says, but I found this one. He'd actually gone and found a summer truffle that I'd been hunting for years.
All those skills and expertise.
Yeah, he's you know, it was like, you know, 14, 15 years later, he goes and finds a summer truffle, doesn't he? So my mum still lives there, right? So she's got a new puppy, and I've got some winter truffles stored. So I'm going to start training that dog up. That dog's clever. That dog's a sniffer. I'm having truffles out of that wood, right? It's driven me mad for as long as we've lived there. And our family's lived in that area for about nearly 100 years. In fact, my granddad still lives there, you know. He still lives next door.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they've just... He's 95 and my nan's 93, and they've celebrated the 71st wedding anniversary, and they still live in the same house.
Really?
Wow.
So if you ever need any help with some new foraging skills, he's there on your doorstep.
Oh, bless him. He's always like, what you got? What you got? I've got some sweet Sicily. What you got? Oh, have you? You know, they're always sort of like having a look, seeing what you got.
So when was the light bulb moment for you then, Alysia, when you kind of realised that you could supply restaurants and then, you know, work in those relationships? Because as you have found out already, chefs can have their moments.
Apparently.
Yeah, you know what? I absolutely love chefs. I love all chefs. You know, it's a bit like herding cats, right? You know, they're wonderful people. You know, you'll send them a text message, and then 3 days later they'll send you one back, and that's like instantaneous to half of them. You know, because they're so busy. They're so busy, and that time just runs away with them. And you've got to make allowances for them, because you know they're involved in the moment. You know, it's that creative process. It's so involved, and you know, it's like an interruption almost. But I think the moment came was. I was on a nerdy mushroom website donkeys years ago, and a chap called Mushroom Martin got in touch when I'd posted a load of puffballs, and he says, how many of them puffballs can you get? I says, I don't know. I said, it's about a mile square, chock-a-block full of puffballs. I wasn't kidding. All right, he says, I'll come and get some. So he came up and he got some, and he says to me, can you get any wild garlic? I says, yeah. I says, we're knee deep in stuff. He says, could you do me 250 grams for Wednesday? Not grams, 250 kilos for Wednesday. I went, yeah, all right then. No idea. There's one thing picking for yourself. There's another picking for restaurants, right? It's not only is it just knowing, you know, like, I mean, actually wild garlic is wonderful. It's wonderful stuff. It's carpeted. It's easy to pick. But there's actually 3 really poisonous plants that grow in it. And requiring high standards means that things have got to be done in a certain way. So we picked the wild garlic. He turned up. He says, can you get me another 250 kilos for Sunday? I says, yeah, I can do that. So that's where it started from. So at first it was like supplying Mushroom Martin, which all went down to Covent Garden. And then I just started knocking on doors. And then, you know, it's like slowly building your reputation up. And that's the thing, you see, because there is no qualifications in foraging. You've got to solely rely upon the trust of the chef that you're supplying, and they have to absolutely trust you that you are doing a really good job. And that's really important, because there's all sorts of factors when you're foraging that you have to take into account. You've got to be 100% safe. It can be dangerous if you make mistakes, can't it, Mark?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you hear stories of, you know, people foraging mushrooms and killing people. I mean, it's crazy. Like, I had somebody sending me a picture of a mushroom. I couldn't identify it from the picture, so I just don't eat it. But don't even pick it. It's crazy. It's just, you can't take the risk. And I think also, like, there's that side of things, but then there's the sustainability side of things as well. So if people are just going out and actually ravishing everything, it's not going to be there next year. So everything needs to be picked correctly, and it can damage the wildlife as well. The wildlife out there, if you can destroy some kind of animal, bird's home and stuff. So
it's
ruin
true.
the environment.
And obviously finding a good supplier of anything is so essential to what you do, Mark, right? And you have that trust with these guys that you work with, and so finding someone like Alysia who is a fountain of knowledge when it comes to this kind of thing. Have you really enjoyed that relationship, building that relationship up, and hers, I don't know, sending you things that maybe you hadn't tried before and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely. It's like an education, and we're always learning. You always want to try new things, but there's massive trust thing. Like any of our suppliers, growers, anyone, like we have to trust that they're first of all looking after us, but then they're looking after the product that they're collecting as well, or rearing, producing, whatever. Really, it's got to. Like you can't just ravish everything, can you? You can't just you can't just take all the sea bass out of the sea, and it's the same for any wild product, and you have to look after it, and we've got to trust the people doing that for us.
So what are some of the favourite things that you get from Alysia? Is there anything you particularly enjoy using, or is there anything that you've been introduced to that you actually didn't know about before?
Well, you get a lot of sweet woodruff and Japanese roses, and
when
sweet Sicily, and
we're putting a little cherry dish, which we did last year as well. I was going back on the menu this year, cherries with woodruff. Well, basically the whole dish is cherry and woodruff. It's amazing. It's an amazing combination, and we absolutely tank that. We'll use, Alysia will tell you, it's kilos and kilos of the stuff. And sweet Sicily, and just all those more sweet flavoured herbs are my favourites. So sweet Sicily, meadowsweet.
Oh yeah, meadowsweet, yeah.
Melliot. Melliot was new to me as well, which was a fantastic, beautiful product.
Which has got that cumin in it as well.
What's that paste, or what do you put that with, Melliot? Because I don't know what that is, and a lot of people listening might not know what that is.
For me, Melliot's got that kind of sweet honey kind of wildflower sort of flavour. And it goes well. It actually goes well with fish, but I kind of prefer it with desserts. Going back to woodruff, it's got an almost almond sort of flavour, like a bitter, sweet vanilla almond flavour. I just love it. The cherry dish is probably the best dessert we've done.
Right,
I haven't tried that one yet. I haven't been over for a while.
Yeah, well, you need to come over, don't you? You both do.
No.
Yeah, table for two, Alysia, me and you.
You know what, honestly, the thing with Mark, I've been over a few times, and I think the last time I went, it was a massive lunch, and it was fantastic. And I said to him afterwards, I said, do you know what, Mark? I says, obviously, I says, that was absolutely amazing. I says, but it's really low on carbohydrates. I says, he says, well, yeah, he says, I want you to get through everything. He says, without thinking, oh God, I've got another 3 courses to come. So it's that balance of being able to try all these fantastic dishes that be so carefully crafted, but not get so overwhelmed by the sheer amount of food that's coming out that you can actually enjoy each course. And that's really important, because it's actually thinking about not just in terms of the flavour and the technical aspects of the dish, but it's in terms of how do you get through all those courses without feeling overfaced and then not enjoying it at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having too much and then not enjoying it anymore. So
exactly, you get some fish course, main course, and you're kind of dreading desserts. It's just a horrible feeling, isn't it? And no matter how good the restaurant is, I remember eating it per se, and it got to we had 20 odd courses. It was crazy. They did this menu which was ridiculous. You got to the desserts, it was just, you could feel yourself just kind of swelling up. And I remember sleeping on my side. It was awful. I rolled out of there. But amazing experience. Yeah, it's just nuts. It's just uncomfortable. And it's all about the flow, of the menu. About one course has to complement the next almost, without the guests actually knowing it. And just having enough, so you finish it, but you want more, but there is no more. There's so much to think about.
Real skill.
I think so.
Well, I think a lot of people think so. I don't think you'd do as well as you do, Mark, if you didn't have that skill. So
we just try hard. We try hard, and you do, like anything, any trade or whatever you do, you try and make the next thing better than the last, don't you? There's nothing more about it, really. So
Alysia, the book. Let's talk about the book. Why have you written a book? Why are you giving away all your secrets?
Because they paid me a lot of money and I got made to do it.
Glad you said that.
The truth. I mean, this is, it was, the good thing about it is, like, it's all the little bits of information in my head, the teeny weeny, like the how to pick cherries, if people want them with stalks on it, to take them out. There's I had to tell the difference between hemlock and sweet Sicily and know your carrots, and like, why don't you just learn 10% of your mushrooms? You don't learn to, you don't need to learn 4,500 mushrooms. You need to learn the ones that are really poisonous and the ones that are really good. You don't actually need to learn all about all the other ones in between.
Yeah.
And it's about how to, it's like how to pick things without, ravaging the countryside. And really, it was all those little bits of information that I get stick in my head. I go to my chefs because I'm really interested in things like the compounds, but it's also a collection of adventures because, like you say, when you start out on this interview, how on earth did you become a forager? How do you end up picking weeds for a living? What is so attractive about scratching around in the dirt for hours on end, right? Getting bitten to death. So this is basically, it's like the start of the journey, how you have a foraging childhood, and then how you sort of like, you grow up and you take your own path because, not for an instant, not for a nanosecond. And also, I don't think it was on trend at that particular point in time. I mean, I wish I could have started it 10 years, 20 years earlier, but I don't actually think there would have been a particular market for it. I think it was just an emerging trend. I don't think there's a particular market for anything at that point in time. The skills for chefs, they were mainly concentrated down in London. It's only now that this country's got such a phenomenal breadth of talent when it comes to chefs. And, I supply all over the country and to all different sorts of people, but I'm a bit more choosy now about who I supply because we can't be all things to everybody, because it's like that sustainability that Mark was talking about. We have to be able to go back to it year after year after year. And it also ties in with the continuity of restaurants and the consistency, because a lot of dishes will make an appearance the year after in a different guise. So you've got to be able to feed into that and have a mind on next year. So ravishing the countryside, taking everything and being unsustainable is not good for the environment. And we have to take pride in what we do. We wouldn't be going so long if we think of it as like gardening the countryside, because you have to think about, well, you can't be a one-hit wonder. If we took every single puffball, there wouldn't be any puffballs this year. Took every single mushroom, there'd be none left for next year. And not only that, but chefs only want a particular size of mushroom. It's got to be of a particular quality. It's got to be absolutely top notch. Can't have any pinpricks in it. Can't have been blown. It's got to be those, like, the most immaculate mushroom ever. And nature doesn't work like that. You'll have 2 immaculate mushrooms and 8 manky ones.
It's so expensive.
That's right. But it's such a thrill. It is such a thrill, though, going out and do this. But it's really hard work. Honestly, it's terrible hard work. I've twisted my knee in it. You've been getting nettled. You're stuck on barbed wire. You've got nettles going in your unmentionables, right? I've been chased by swarms of bees. You're fighting off swans when you're in a swamp. It is, there's a lot of hazards. You're lurking in bushes half the time, and people sort of like, you're trying not to be spotted because it's like, what are you doing in that bush, right? It's not brilliant. People have got no idea. The people have got no idea what you have to go through, just to get what you have to get. Because that's the other thing. It doesn't grow all in one place. It's like, it's a supermarket, yeah, but all your aisles are like a mile apart. And it takes a long time to be able to get that knowledge, and you've got to be ahead of the curve, because if you're not ahead of the curve, You won't be able to supply. I mean, people like Mark at this particular level, and it's a very specialised level, they need to be able to plan their menus to such an extent that when you say you can do something, you can supply something, you have to be absolutely nailed on that you can do it, because they're relying on you. And when chefs rely on the produce that that's crucial to the actual dish, you've got to be able to deliver. You have to be able to deliver. It comes back to just like running a business, but a very unusual business. But you've got to do everything that businesses do, which is be consistent, on time, do what you say you're going to do, and it's got to be of like really good quality.
So now the book is done and you've seen it. Are you happy with it? Is it how you imagined it would be? And Mark, have you seen a copy yet or not of the book?
I think it's lost in the post. No, to be honest, I've just not had a chance to order it yet. I will order it. It's on my list.
It's all right. I'll send you one out, Mark, honestly.
No, I'm going to buy one. Oh,
yeah.
So having seen it as a finished product, what do you think? Are you happy with it? Is it strange seeing something that's yours?
It is bizarre. I have to admit, it is bizarre seeing, your name on a book. And it was, I did the audio book for it as well. I read the audio book out, which was really hard. 3 days, like 90,000 words. But writing it was a year-long process. And I've got a really good editing team behind me, and the publisher's been absolutely fantastic. And I'm also bringing out a gin as well, which is going to reflect the book cover. So that's all in the pipeline at the moment. And imagine I say pipeline, that should be out within the next 6 weeks anyway, and on shelves. So
you can order a book and a bottle of gin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And they look the same. It's the way forward. It's the future. The thing is, I get my family roped into the foraging because you don't want to give people your secrets. People go, oh, take me foraging. Well, there's two things. One, it's really boring what we do, is because we'll spend like all day in front of a Christmas tree picking tips off it. That is not exciting. Believe me, it is not exciting. And then the other one, if you're picking wild garlic, we do it by, we do it by the hundreds of kilos. That's not exciting either, right? There's a lot of people who do really good foraging courses out there, but where we are in particular, we've got some amazing produce and there's an amazing landscape, so we were able to get a lot of things, which is great, but it takes a long time to come up to that standard. It's like, I know we've got bilberries coming out next, and I've got my eye on the sour cherries and the black cherries, and meadow sweets just making an appearance, so I have to be able to get that out to chefs in a really timely fashion, and I need to know how long it's going to be on for. But I go on about that in the book, and it's not just the plants themselves; it's the compounds and it's the science behind them and it's the processing. Because I'm able to look at the compounds in a plant, and I'll be able to say it's water soluble, it's oil soluble, it's alcohol soluble, or it's not. Because some things you can put in water and you're never going to get a syrup out of it. You're never going to get any flavour whatsoever because it won't dissolve in water. So because it's expensive, like Mark said, you need to be able to say to your chefs, right, do this with it. This is what you can do, but don't do that with it. And they appreciate that because it's just another added aspect of knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, and Mark, obviously you said that you forage yourself, so I'm assuming you can confirm that picking wild garlic is not exciting.
No, it's boring. It's like Alysia says, it can be dangerous as well, can't it? No, it's nice. It's nice to pick something, and for me, it's about having everything at its peak. I generally don't buy the sea greens from Alysia because I've got a coastline 20 minutes away, and I'll pick them from there. So it's kind of. It's just getting that balance, and it's all about the product and the quality, and like we said earlier, the trust and having that relationship to deliver what you want to deliver, and what you do.
What would you say to? Occasionally, I'll hear people who say, you've described the flavours that some of these things have, and they'll say, why don't you just use that thing that is the flavour rather than using something that tastes like that? What would you say about that? If that makes sense, sorry.
Yeah, no, it does make sense, but Woodruff is Woodruff, and I suppose you could try and make a mock-up of it with some, vanilla and almond and some bitter flavours, I suppose, but you're not going to get wood growth. I use those certain products because I like the flavour of those. I love rosehip and stuff like that. And I think rosehip's not too far from a tomato.
Those Japanese rosehips are very tomatoey, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're a lot different to dog roses, which are more like Turkish delight.
Yeah, and I kind of, I pair it with, I do a lobster tomato dish with rosehip, and it works really well.
And I have to say that is phenomenal. Honestly, I've had that one, and that is honestly, it's just like, when you go out to I go out to a lot of restaurants, and then there's some dishes that just stay in your mind. But, that one for me really stands out. And it's not just that, because I look at that dish and I think I've actually played a role in that dish. I've gone and got the Japanese rosehip, and I get a sense of pride out of that as well. And then, you hand it over to Mark, and they do what they do with it, and the heritage tomatoes and the lobster, and it's just absolutely stunning. But when you eat a dish like that, you just, you get a lot of satisfaction from the job that you do yourself as well in playing that part of a supplier. I suppose it's like when the game people come in and the fish people come in, and they've given you the best produce and they're trying the best fish and it's all cooked freshly. It's just, there's you do get a lot of satisfaction out of being able to go and try the end product of what you've been picking.
With your book, I suppose, final question then, what are you hoping that people will take from it? Is it kind of what you said before, that even if they just learn a little bit for themselves and take those key bits so that they can maybe go out and try it for themselves? Or what was your thinking behind it when you did it, and you thought, right, when people are going to read this, they're going to do... I
think one of the things is being doing foraging from when we were small and having a history and family background in foraging, I think it's a dying art. There's only a handful of people in the country who really know how to do it properly and really have a lot of in-depth knowledge. This book, I think, just captures all the thoughts in my mind of what I'm doing when I'm foraging, how I'm foraging, what I'm foraging. And I think what people will be able to take, it's a book that you can pass down. It's a book that will be relevant in 100 years' time, 200 years' time. It's not on trend. It's information that will last an eternity, and hopefully people will, because I'm all for encouraging people to forage as long as they do it safely. And this book will give you that guide of how to do it safely and how to forage, and all the little tips and hints and the chemicals and the compounds and the processes and where to go and what you would expect to find. Everything that's in my head is in that book. So that's it. About all I've got in my head is 90,000 words. That's it.
More than mine.
And, for anyone that wants those 90,000 words, where can we get the book from? You might as well have a little plug whilst we're on here.
Well, you can get it from Amazon, you can get it from Waterstones, independent bookshops, W.H. Smith, all the big outlets, really, all the big outlets.
And it's the Yorkshire Forager, correct?
That's me. It is indeed.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you both so much for having a chat with me. And I will leave you both to it because I've no doubt that you're busy. But Mark, good luck with everything, opening and stuff. And Alysia, hopefully you can still save some of the season before it's all gone.
Yeah, well, we're on with it at the moment, so we'll just see what occurs, won't we? There's lots of things going on, but thanks for doing this, Mark. Cheers, honey.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, nice to see you both.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this interview, and if you have any comments, feel free to tweet us or comment on the post. We're making all of our interviews available to download. And finally, if you like what we do, whether it's our podcast or our videos or even our features, please head over to our Patreon page and support us there. This episode of Grilled is sponsored by Rationale, your leading provider in multifunctional hot food preparation equipment. Register now for a free Rationale live demo at www.rationale-online.com.